Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Maha Game Guys Board Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Adrian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And this is roughly Wednesday's episode was episode 110. And on the 10s, we do top 10s. So it's a top 10 list.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Feels like we haven't done a top 10 in a long time.
Yeah, well, it's been actually over 10 weeks because we didn't really do numbered episodes for right around that Gen Con.
Yeah.
And the last time we did was kind of our revamp top 10 / 2-year anniversary / So really, it's been like 20 episodes.
Yeah.
Since we did a real top 10. And that was the top 10 under 90 minutes.
Yes.
Way back then for episode 90. So.
That's right.
Yeah. For this top 10, we are doing top 10 worker placement games, which I think we all kind of took a similar but slightly different takes on. Like, so for me, mine are not my top 10 favorites for worker placement games. Otherwise, it'd be just like list every Uwe worker placement followed by every VTOL worker placement, and then that's my top 10.
Mm-hmm. Quick and simple.
Yeah, it would be boring. So you'll hear as we get into our lists kind of what we exactly were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But just so we're all starting from at least some semblance of an even starting point on all of this, let's look at BGG's definition of worker placement. More precisely referred to as action drafting, requires players to select individual actions from a set of actions available to all players. Players generally select actions one at a time and in turn order. There is usually a limit on the number of times a single action may be taken. Once that limit for an action is reached, it typically either becomes more expensive or can no longer be taken for the remainder of the round. As such, not all actions can be taken by all players in a given round, and action blocking occurs. If the game is structured in rounds, then all actions are usually refreshed at the start or end of each round, so they become available again. Actions are commonly selected by the placement of game pieces or tokens. Each player usually has a limited number of pieces with which to participate in the process. Some games achieve the same effect in reverse. The turn begins with action spaces filled by markers, which are claimed by players at some cost. From a thematic standpoint, game pieces which players use to draft actions often represent workers of a given trade. In other words, players often thematically place workers, thus the name of worker placement, to show which actions have been drafted by individual players. And then, so that's roughly what we're working with here. Keydom of the Key series, which I'm sure we'll hear more about from me later.
I bet money that we won't know.
Money.
Keydom is widely considered the first worker placement, published in 1998.
20th anniversary of worker placement.
Yep. Which actually makes this another fitting reason to do it. 20th anniversary.
Yep.
And then some earlier examples, and this really took me by surprise. Bus, which is a splotter that is like fucking impossible to find. 1999 is apparently an early design experiment with worker placement. Holy fuck, I want to play a splotter worker placement so bad. I need to find and play Bus like now.
Just tell Paul and he'll spend $300 on it.
Correct.
So.
More.
Yeah.
Well, I won't even have to tell him. He'll listen to this on Wednesday and we'll have it by the weekend.
To it on Friday, you mean?
Or yeah, he'll listen to this on Friday and then we'll have it by the weekend. I'm sure he'll order it one night ship. But yeah, and then well-known examples: Agricola, Caelus, Stone Age, for some earlier ones. And then they have a bunch of asterisks for the word usually refers to this. And currently, the oldest dated and tagged game for worker placement is Silverton from 1991. But it's controversial since apparently none of the mechanisms actually meet the accepted criteria for worker placement. So there you go. So that's what worker placement is, roughly. I like how pretty much all of that is like, usually this, often this.
Because you know, there are 100 of them, hundreds of them where you're just like, oh, well, not in this instance, but we still consider it that, so. And
that's kind of what this top 10 is all about, is ways that they took that general framework and did interesting things with it. So worker placement for me is my favorite mechanism in board games. So I tried to separate a little bit. So this isn't so much my favorite worker placement games. It's my
favorite implementations of worker placement.
Takes on it. Like games where I was like, that's worker placement done in a interesting or unique kind of way.
Yeah, because we all know Agricola is your top favorite of worker placements, but you would have to agree that it is not the most the best worker implementation of worker placement.
No.
Not even his best. Ue's.
Yeah.
Because Caverna.
So Jeff is just trying to get stabbed so much in this episode. It's this episode is going to be a countdown to which one of us, Zach or I, stab Jeff first. But you're right.
I'll agree with all Zach's. Yours, though.
For the purposes of this, however, and just to kind of lead into where I'm going with this, for this episode, Agricola is in my honorable mentions. I did want to talk about Agricola, and I actually on my list have Agricola / Caverna, because when it comes to the actual worker placement, they're essentially the same. Much of the differences in Caverna and Agricola come in like how many spaces there are, and then whether you have the extra cards in Agricola, and some minor different twists like that. But there's a reason that Caverna is like a spiritual successor or an Agricola 2.0 or, whatever people sometimes call it. But they're very pure worker placements. Like they don't really do anything interesting with the mechanic.
Yeah.
They're very pure, which is partially why they're my favorite. Like worker placement is my favorite mechanism, and they just do it so well. I would like Caverna a lot more if Agricola didn't exist, because it would fill that spot that Agricola just has on lockdown. But yeah. So mine are all more, I don't know, different things that people have done with worker placement.
I would agree with that, yes.
So
Mine are in an order, but they're also interesting things in there too.
Gotcha.
They just also happen to be some of my favorites.
Mine are roughly in order of favorites, not quite. There's a couple examples where I thought, like, if I was to take these 10 games and have them on a table, and it's like, which one would you want to play? It might be something more in the middle versus something on either ends. I don't know. We'll see. We'll get into it here. Without much further ado, honorable mentions. Does anybody have any honorable mentions they'd really like to get out of the way?
Yeah. Yes. One second. I just want to let you know that literally within the last 5 minutes, I changed something from an honorable mention to 9 to 2.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It was more of like thinking of it. I was like, okay, actually, you know what? No, I should do that.
These lists are very fluid, especially this one in particular, since it's kind of a little bit different look at things.
Yeah, because like I'm not listing these as my like of worker placements. These are my top 10, but these are my favorite ways that games have implemented worker placement. That it's like it's very like vague, in a way. So. But
we'll throw a number at the front of them.
Right. Yes. Well, Zach, how about you start with your honorable mentions?
All right. Kitchen Rush, because it's a worker placement, but with real-time aspects.
Fuck, that's a good one I completely forgot about.
Yeah. I think that's pretty cool that you're placing it, but then you just have to wait, and you're like, I need to do so many things, but it's not that frustration of worker placements of I don't have enough actions. It's I literally don't have enough time to do everything that I want.
Well, and it's interesting because that one actually does a couple things.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, and that wasn't one I was on my shit. Now I wanted to like throw it on my list.
Feel free.
Too late. We already started on mentions.
You literally heard me change. I told you I changed something from honorable mentions to number 2, just in the past couple of minutes. So feel free.
No, I'm not quite going to go that far. For one, I've only played it twice, I think, and so it just doesn't have. I don't have enough experience with it to really throw it on the list. But it does a couple interesting things. It's a co-op, which is an interesting thing for worker placements because so much of what most worker placements are is denial.
Yeah.
And it's ones that turn that into a co-op where like maybe you all want to do this one thing or this, but you have to kind of divvy up who's going to go take care of different stuff. And it still handles that because like you're hogging up the sink or the cooktop or whatever. Yep. And then, so everybody's like waiting on yours. And usually, like you said, the challenge is not having enough workers to place in places. This one, it's the fact that you have to place it and then just wait.
You have a finite amount of time, yes.
Yeah, and that's a good one. Yeah. Good one.
And my next one is Manhattan Project Energy Empire, and specifically the soft blocking that it has. This
is now more expensive.
Yeah, it's more. It costs because you can do that on the main board action. You can follow someone else and do the same thing, but you have to pay more energy. You have to physically make your piece bigger than the other player.
Yes,
and the fact that you can counter that by preventively spending more pieces to make your piece bigger, more energy to make your piece bigger, so people have to do more than that. So that plays into your strategy of not only do I want to do this, how much do I not want other people to do it, or specifically one other person. So I like that as well.
Okay. Jeff, did you have any honorable mentions?
This War of Mine,
Okay.
which is a very thematic
Mm-hmm.
worker placement.
Yeah.
It's just that when you put a worker in Sniper Alley, you do a whole bunch of other stuff that is in a book with cards, etc. And then you go back and then you place your other much more miserable workers
Gotcha.
back in there. Still technically a worker placement.
Yeah. What were we supposed to do if that was going to be farther up on somebody's lip? Just random question.
Well, so that I didn't expect it so much with honorable mentions.
All right. I'll talk about that later. How about that?
Yeah.
We'll just say that.
Yeah. And it's just my honorable mention.
Yeah.
Boom. Done.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then Founders of Gloomhaven, because there is a worker.
There is a worker. There are workers you can technically place, but you can play the game without doing that.
Yes, you can. It is an optional part.
So what did I say? I'm gonna gut you with my key, and it's a very
blunt.
I think you said you would only gut him with your key if it was on his list. I don't know if there's honorable mentions not necessarily on the list.
no. It's not. God damn it,
Jeff, I just saved your life.
I mean, yeah.
What you did is you denied people like
Real visceral.
intent, like a fucking intense hour and a half of podcasting.
As Jeff slowly dies from a gut wound.
Yeah.
Stab wound.
Obviously, we would still be doing the top 10 while this was happening.
Dying slowly
Yep.
in the corner.
Okay.
Any others, Jeff?
No, it's just two.
Unsurprisingly, I have more than two. I can't talk about worker placement, I think, without mentioning Agricola. It is, and Caverna. I think Agricola is the single best worker placement game that exists. Fight me.
All right, let's do it, Jeff.
You got your key, man.
I've got my keys. All right.
It's an older game. It's a very basic implementation of it, but it's pretty quintessential worker placement that you've got a set amount of workers. There's ways to get more workers, which is a big part of the game. Like if you go the entire game and you don't get any additional workers in Agricola, you're probably screwed. I like that this takes the worker, like they're a worker part, literally, so that you actually have to provide for them, which some games do, some games don't, depending on the game and the theme and why you're doing things. I really like that it's so punishing in Agricola. Like you don't want to let your people starve.
No, I just know why you like survival games a lot more now.
Yes.
I have my dude, but I also have to feed him.
Shit, you're not wrong. But yeah, I think Agricola and Caverna are two of the absolute purest from a worker placement mechanism. Caverna and Agricola are basically indistinguishable in how that works. I also want to throw out honorable mention for Champions of Midgard / Lords of Waterdeep, because I think those are two excellent introductions to worker placement. They do it in a very approachable, and in the case of Champions of Midgard, even more thematic way, which I will grant that theme does make things more accessible
and
helps.
It would be a good crossover.
Yes.
So
I almost put Midgard on, and I'm sure, Zach, you'll be talking about Midgard a little bit later. I almost put it on because I do think it's really interesting the way they used dice as workers and how they resolve.
I would say dice are more resources. I mean, I guess you technically could, whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
They're sub-workers. How about that?
Yeah. But I think those are two great intros. And then Vanuatu, Kalis, I really wanted to include them. Argent, even. We've reviewed Argent, so I can't really say like I haven't played it enough. But Argent didn't stand out to me enough compared to some of these other ones.
Mm-hmm.
And Vanuatu and Kalis, I just haven't played enough to really put them on there. I like Kalis's use of the Provost to like, suddenly all of these workers that you placed aren't actually going to do shit because I was a dick and moved this marker back several spaces, so everything beyond it no longer happens. I think that's a really interesting kind of denial aspect it adds, but really the worker placement itself I felt was too just kind of generic. And yeah, there's more on here, but I'm not going to talk about like 7 games in my honorable mentions. I'm just going to let them lie. I love worker placement. There's a lot of really good worker placement.
It's not a
games
top
out there.
20, Adrian.
Exactly.
Nope.
I might release a top 25 on the website if anybody wants to know my top 25 worker placement games. but that's later. Let's get into the top 10s.
Sounds good.
I will start with number 10. Raiders of the North Sea is my number 10. We reviewed it. Go back and listen to the review. We used the term worker pullment about 1,000 times. I think worker pullment instead of placement was a really interesting thing that they did with this style. They took something that you're used to putting a worker there and then getting an action, and then at the end of the round, you just clear workers and that's it, or something like that. In this one, as you take your workers back, you get to do additional action, and it lends an interesting thing to the strategy and tactics of the game in that you see where people are, so you see what they're going to be getting when they pull their worker back, which can help you time when you think they're going to pull it back. Plus, it gives you hints what they're getting, what they're putting their workers on, trying to get that stuff. You basically see a turn ahead of them getting it. Oh, he's getting, this resource now. That means he's probably going to go do this other thing later. If I want to do that thing ahead of him, I need to find a way to cut him off. And it adds a little bit of interesting tactics and strategy to that game. Yeah. So
it's further on my list.
Yeah.
So
worker pullment, Raiders of the North Sea is my number 10 interesting use of worker placement. Jeff, FA, what is your number 10?
My number 10 is Lords of Waterdeep. This was my first worker placement I played, I believe. Sort of taught me all of the wonders that is worker placement, action selection, etc. We've talked about it to death-ish. Have we reviewed it?
No.
We have not reviewed Lords of Waterdeep.
We've reviewed all the better games. But this one definitely is a very good introduction. It's D&D themed with heavy air quotes on there. But it has all the classic mechanics of worker placement, and I think it's just a really good, solid worker placement game.
I remember playing it as sort of an intro as well, and I felt it did a good job at the time. Yeah.
This was before I think I had even played Agricola.
Gotcha.
Right on. Zach, your number 10?
My number 10 is Champions of Midgard, as basically my favorite intro worker placement, and also just sort of like base worker placement of just you put a dude down, you get the stuff, no one else can no one else can affect that guy. Pretty much like you're saying with Lords of Waterdeep, I think it's a great introduction. Introductory. It'll teach somebody the mechanics of it, but it's also, I think it's good at pulling people from the other aisle, the Ameritrash style of pulling. If you want to pull them into worker placements, you can pull that in and be like, look, it's got the dice and it's got all that stuff, but
it's about Vikings.
But then you can show people blocking and stuff like that, and it's still, the theme is well utilized and stuff like that. So I feel
a little more resource management in that one.
Exactly. Yes. So it is my number 10.
Right on. My number 9 is Euphoria. This one is my dice as workers one for my list. I really enjoyed there's been multiple games that use dice as workers for worker placement.
Yeah.
And they do them in different ways. I thought Euphoria, the way they tied that in with the theme, it's another one we've reviewed. Go listen to the review, and if you haven't already. But I really like how the higher numbers can let you do a lot more, but that also increases the risk that you're going to lose one of your die. And same thing with getting more workers. Like, as in most games, it's a no-brainer in worker placement games to get an extra worker. In Euphoria, you've really got to kind of take into consideration like that will increase the likelihood that you're going to lose die. And I think that's interesting. Not many worker placements have a mechanic where you regularly lose workers. And I liked the way that played out. And specifically with using dice as the workers in Euphoria. So,
okay.
Jeff, you're number 9.
My number 9, which I don't think might be on anyone's list for once.
Ooh.
Is Everdell.
Nope.
It is on there. It's for a reference. Yeah.
Okay. I really liked Everdell. Worker placement is interesting. The only real complaint I have is I wish the spots were a little different in like what.
But that's not the worker placement as much as the
worker spots. Yeah. I really like how it combined tableau building with worker placement. The amount of the random ones that you can get per game are pretty big.
Yeah.
And like every game can be different based on various events and things like that. You can get off of combinations with critters and constructions, fuck round wood pieces.
Yeah.
But
you'll hear more of that next week.
Yeah. But a very enjoyable, another lighter game to get into the worker placement realm. But another mechanic I like is tableau building, and this one is worker placement and tableau building, and it's together.
Yes.
And then the board's cool too. So
yes, it is. Yeah.
Right on.
You'll hear more about my specific thing that I like about it. So
Yes.
the tree.
no. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually talking about the components in a game instead of the actual worker placement.
No.
portion.
Specifically, I like how the twigs are circular. They just
roll everywhere.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Zach, what is your number 9?
My number 9 is Feast for Odin and also sort of Dinosaur Island, in the sense that both of those have work. Like when you're doing the worker placement, there's different values of the workers. So in Dinosaur Island, it's actual different values of 1, 2, and 3 for choosing specific things. But for Feast of Odin, it's certain spots require more workers. So I like how you can, for Feast of Odin, you can get you can do a lot of little actions or a couple big actions.
Yes.
And I did like that part where it's not only do you want to do certain things, but it's I'm going to have a big turn where I get to do a bunch of smaller things, or it's like all my turn I'm doing 2 actions this turn, but they're giant actions.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an interesting thing that it did.
Yeah. Both of those games almost made my list. Dinosaur Island ultimately didn't, because a good chunk of the worker placement is just on your own board with none of the interaction and anything. So that kind of that's ultimately what.
And that's why I ended up putting the Feast for Odin as the main one.
Yeah.
And then that was another game that does that. So
Feast for Odin was really close. Like I said, if this was a list of just my top 10 favorite worker placements, it would probably be somewhere on that top 10, because it would be like a bunch of UVAs and Vital games scattered into a list of 10. But I agree. I almost like really, and I wish I thought about it more. I'm like, where can I squeeze this in on my list now? I do really like that mechanic. I think they did that very well.
I'm sure it'll fit into the top 25 list.
Oh, easily.
Yes, there's room in the top 25 for Feast for Odin.
Yeah.
Sweet. My number 8 is Robinson Crusoe. This is the sole example on mine of a pure cooperative worker placement. I hinted at it a little bit.
Might be one of the only pure cooperative worker placements.
Yeah, there's not many.
Yeah.
Kitchen Rush was one.
Yeah. And I hinted at it with Kitchen Rush a little bit. What I like about a good co-op worker placement is that trying to replicate the tenseness that comes from the blocking. Like I said, the lack of blocking is really why Dinosaur Island isn't on my list. I feel like that's a key part of worker placement. And Robinson Crusoe does it in an interesting way where you feel like you kind of need to do everything and you can't. And I really like the way that they allow you to either stack up 2 of your workers by yourself or team up with another player to either have better odds or just auto succeed at a task. Like, holy shit, we really need to do this one task. We need to make sure we send enough to overcome whatever the limitation for that one is.
Yeah.
And I really like that. And that's a great example of connecting the worker placement mechanism to a theme just in such a way that you feel a lot of what you're doing as part of that.
Yes, because it's all about spending your time. Because you have your two pawns represent your entire day doing stuff, and it's do you focus the entire time doing something, or do you split, or do you and somebody else do some of it? So yes, they tied that well into what a round represents, I think.
Yes. But Robinson Crusoe, it's my number 8.
You will hear more about that from me later.
Okay.
And me.
Right on. Jeff, what is your number 8?
My number 8 is Charterstone. It's a legacy game, and it was the first worker placement legacy game.
Yes.
Yeah,
That I'm aware of.
that I am also aware of. That you sort of can build up this whole game into a final, like, hey, now it's just a worker placement game at the end. A lot of the fun of the game, of course, is unlocking all of that weird stuff over the course of the game, but it is otherwise a normal worker placement game. Generally, you're not doing anything crazy. There's lots of options and things like that to do. But the legacy part of the worker placement makes it really cool, where your board will be different from someone else's board by quite a bit. And I'm sad I missed out on the Gen Con event where people brought in all of their completed boards to try and play on that, just because I wanted to see more of what people's games turned into.
Right.
It was an enjoyable worker placement game that I would like to play again.
Gotcha. I thought about it, but what I liked about the things I liked about the game weren't the worker placement. It was the legacy part of it.
Yeah.
But like you said, just worker placement, it was sort of like I didn't feel like the worker placement.
There was nothing too incredibly
unique about the worker placement mechanism in it. So yeah, that's why it inevitably did not end up on my list.
Yeah.
Right on.
But how can you not mention a legacy worker placement game in a top 10?
I know.
If I had played it, I possibly would have.
Yeah.
Zach, you're number 8.
My number 8 is This War of Mine. And that was for connecting workers with an actual character. So each of your workers is unique in what they can and can't do. But then also, inevitably, when you lose that worker because it dies, you feel that. You're not like in Euphoria, you're just like, all right, I just lost a dude. You're like, this person didn't have coffee until they killed themselves.
They didn't have coffee for a long time.
Yeah, and so I thought that game did I thought that game did a good job of connecting your workers to something, to tie it to something, so you felt something for those workers, but also like for each of them are experiencing something different, or this worker is hungry and tired and sick, so they have to go here to get better or to eat and stuff like that. And so I thought it did a great job of that.
Right on.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to get another worker.
No.
Indeed. My number 7 is a little bit of a cheat because it's 3 games wrapped luckily under one common name, and it's the Manhattan Project series.
Okay.
Because the reason I'm bundling them is because the thing I think they did the most interesting and why they're on the list, all 3 of them do, and it's the spending multiple turns putting out your workers and doing the worker placement, getting to do like 2 actions, and then you get to do 2 more actions, then you're out of workers, so you pull them all back, and now you've got all your workers, and then maybe you earn some extras, and then you put out 6 next time, then you pull it back, and then you put out 8, and then you pull back, and and that kind of balance, and especially in the most recent one we played, Minutes to Midnight, where
Manhattan Project 2.
Minutes to Midnight, yes. Especially in that one, I felt a lot more of the tenseness of like, can I wait one more round to pull back? Can I sneak another 1 or 2 actions, or should I pull back now to get to score some points and do some things?
And that's because 2, all the other ones where you place it and you do the action, and then you pull. You're spending a turn just getting everything back.
Yes.
And 2, it's pulling is the turn. It's you're doing all of you're activating them. Yeah, with specific and in whatever order you want.
Yes.
So you're you're putting a bunch of things down, and then to hopefully pull them back in the most efficient way possible to get the most points or most whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The other thing that I like with them that also helped very much earn these a spot on my list is the way they handle different types of workers. You start off with a base of unskilled workers, at least in Manhattan Project and Manhattan Project 2. I don't think you really did this in Energy Empire.
No.
Yeah. But you start with a pool of unskilled workers, and then through some of the actions, you can turn unskilled ones into engineers,
So you can upgrade them,
or spies or whatever else. And those can always do generic worker stuff, or they can do their own special stuff that only they can do. And I think that is a really clever twist on common worker placement. Having, it's not the only game by far that's had different tiers of workers or workers that can do different things. But it's another example of the theme and the reasons behind what you're doing. Like, you might send, in Manhattan Project 1, like you send somebody to university and now you get a scientist, or you send them to like trade school and you get an engineer. And so it ties into the theme and makes a little bit more sense of why you're getting what you're getting.
Right.
And so, yeah, I really dug that. Manhattan Project 1, 2, and Energy Empire are all three collectively my number 7.
You'll hear more about it later for me.
Hefe, you're number 7.
My number 7 is Manhattan Project Energy Empire.
Nice.
I have played all 3 of them. Energy Empire was the one that more hooked me. The other ones, like specifically 2, I've only played it once at Geekway, but it was a lot of like...
It felt the most.
It definitely felt the most out of all of them. The more scaled down like theme of just being like, I'm making power plants and stuff. There wasn't any of the additional like worker types and things like that, but it did have that mechanic you mentioned earlier of just like things get more expensive. It has a really nice blocking mechanism in there. You have your own personal tableau of pollution and things like that you're trying to manage, along with your different energy type dice that you're rolling. And Energy Empire, as many things that Adrian had mentioned, is my favorite of the Manhattan Project.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right on. Zach, how about you for your number 7?
My number 7 is Robinson Crusoe. For a lot of the things that you were saying, that basically there's a risk and reward for doing actions with your workers. You can spend part of your time doing it, but you have a chance of failing or getting injured or getting those cards that can really mess with you. Or you can spend your entire time doing it, know that you're going to do it, but you know that if you do that, you're not going to win the game. So it's about when do you play the risk? When do you play it risky? When do you play it safe? And the decisions that the added decisions that makes.
Yeah.
So, and like, with tying it well to a theme and all that stuff.
Yeah. Really feeling the impact of those, like,
yes,
we're stranded on a desert island and these things are decisions we would normally have to make.
Yeah.
And King Kong wants to eat us.
Yes.
I haven't played that one yet.
Neither have I. I apparently own 2 of those, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. But that's my number 7.
Right on. My number 6 is the newest game on my list. It is so new, it is technically not even out yet. This is Sagas of Noggin the Nog.
I was writing it before you were even done saying
it. I've played Sagas now 3 or 4 times. I think 3 times. Once at Liericon and then twice at HeavyCon. And it is a fantastic worker placement game. It would be incredibly high up on my list of regular worker placements. But the thing I really like about Sagas is you have, like so many other worker placements, you have a bunch of workers, and it really combines just a bunch of different mechanics around worker placement that I really like. So you're not necessarily limited to a set amount of placements each turn. That's going to be determined by where you are on the rondel for how many actions you get. So some turns you might only get 1 or 2, or you might only want to take 1 or 2. Other turns you might get to do 6 different actions. And as you do these actions, you're putting your workers out in different spots. It does not quite like Energy Empire, where you have to beat the other people there. But if you want to do the same action again, before you get to take everybody back, you have to beat your own. So if you send 1 worker 1 turn, then the next turn you have to send 2, and then you have to send 3. So you have to keep sending more and more to keep doing the same actions. Additionally, with the sagas and the inventions that you work on, a lot of those require you committing workers to them. But they're off doing that thing. Like if they're working on a saga has multiple steps. It's a big, long process. And any that you commit to there are committed for multiple rounds for a long time if you want to get the points from it. You can take them back at any time, but then you're not getting the points for those workers. So it kind of turns into a wasted action earlier. And it is one of the few games I've seen that running out of workers is like one of the worst things that can happen to you. Like, you do not want to run out of workers in Noggin. It is, you've planned terribly, you've played poorly, and you are now in a bad spot. And I really like the way it handles that. You start with a decent amount of workers, 12, but that sounds like a lot when you compare it to something like Agricola, where if you like 5 is the max you will ever get, and that's like end game. But those 12, it's still tight, and people get low or run out, and then you can't do the things you want to do because you don't have the workers for it anymore. And that kind of tension just really feeds well into what I like about worker placements. There's a lot else I love about that game. Whenever it actually gets to us, we're going to review the absolute shit out of it, so I can gush about all of the other awesome things it does.
Because none of us have touched this game.
Yeah. Maybe podcast vote, not vote.
No. That will be my yearly veto, or however many vetoes we get a year to the podcast vote.
Don't we also get a veto about not reviewing it?
No, fuck you. We are reviewing Sagas when it gets here. It is such a good game. And especially, I think the worker placement portion of it is really good. So that's my number 6, Sagas of Noggin the Nog. Jeff, your number 6.
My number 6 is The Gallerist. A fantastic game. Also probably the heaviest game on my list.
And the only Beetle game that'll be on that list. Too.
Yeah. A wonderful game with weird-looking meeples. And I love all the different things you can do with them. They have the different variety of color options, and you're pulling the auction is fantastic because you're now burning off these valuable meeples for the auction spaces, buying things. When we finally played it correctly, where they leave was definitely a game changer. So many different options in this game to be able to do a lot of, I don't know, interesting strategies and tactical options. I assume it will be later on Adrian's list.
We will definitely be talking about Gallerist later.
Yeah.
Or at least I will.
Yes.
There won't be a we, because I don't think Zach's going to have Gallerist.
No, not at all. I was never a fan of his style of worker placement. So.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Zach, your number 6.
My number 6 is Last Will.
That one is so this is an example of like, oh shit, I wish I had. That was one of the ones I cut off of my I'm not going to talk about a dozen games in my honorable mentions.
But the thing I really like about this one is how the amount of workers you have is tied to your player order.
Yes.
And so if you want to get a lot of things done, you're going to have to go later, and by going later, the things you might need to do might already be taken. And this is because there are two different workers in here. There are your errand boys.
Yeah, there's like your butler.
And then the actual pawns you have for doing things on your own tableau.
Yep.
And so I like that you have to be like, do I need to do this one thing? If I do, take that one spot, but that's all I'm doing. And so, yeah, I feel like restrictions are like a big thing in a lot of these games for me. And so I think that having to tie that into your player order is another thing you have to consider when you're trying to run the worst engine ever.
Yes. There's so much I like about the worker placement in Last Will. And I'm glad it actually did make your list so we could talk about it a little bit. The fact there are the 2 different portions of worker placement, and that first portion not only determines how many workers you get later, but it's also going to determine how many like cards you get to do and a bunch of other different things. So there's a lot more going into that decision than just, do I want more workers later or less workers earlier?
Yeah.
Which makes it an interesting and tough decision. And then I like the way that most of the spaces are incredibly limited. So you feel the blocking in that second worker placement where errand boys are snatching up things, and you're just like, god damn it, that was the one thing I really needed to do, and fuck.
Well, now you have 3 errand boys to do shit all.
Yep. To go find some other shit to go waste money on. And then the theme on that one is just fantastic, but we're not talking about theme. So yeah, good one.
Brewster's
Zach.
Millions.
Yes, 100%.
Brewster's
You
Millions,
remember
the game.
Have you seen that movie? Still?
No.
Yeah, of course. God, no.
And you know,
course he hasn't.
I've probably seen it on Comedy Central a long time
That's
ago.
where I saw it many times. Yeah.
I really want to play Prodigal's Club. Just slight
Yes.
aside, similar game, same designer. I really want to play Prodigal's
Do you
Club.
want to play Prodigal's Club, but instead of using one part of it, you just play Last Will in there? Because that's 100% what you can do.
Kind of. To be honest.
Yep.
I'm a big fan sometimes of smashing things together into something ridiculous.
Mhm.
Cool. We are cooking right through this. We are halfway through these lists, moving on into the fives. My number 5 is Le Havre. Lavre.
Le Havre.
The Harbor.
Was it Lee Harvey? Is
Lee
it
Harvey.
Yeah.
Le Havre, Uwe Rosenberg. And the reason this one made it on here where Agricola didn't is Le Havre, you get one worker. And that one worker only moves when you fucking want it to move. So you could play really sparingly with your worker and mainly jump, like you could jump over and I could take an action in Jeff's space, pay him a coin to do something really good that he has that he probably wants to do a lot. And then my guy could just fucking sit there for round after round after fucking round, blocking him from the thing he built and wanted to do. And there ain't shit Jeff can do about it. And I love that. I love how much tension that Uwe got into Le Havre with just one fucking worker per person. It's definitely not a full-on worker placement game. Worker placement is definitely just a part of it, and there's a lot of other great things about Le Havre. It's another one of my top 5 games of all time.
To be fair, Founders of Gloomhaven has more workers than Le Havre.
And but it also has the average amount of workers that you're going to place be the same.
Yes.
I think you'll place your one worker more in Le Havre than you'll place any of your workers.
No, I mean, you'll place one worker in Le Havre, and you're going to place about one worker in Gloomhaven. You're not going to get to 2 and 3 that often.
No.
Yeah. But I really love how tight that is, and I like that it's one where the worker never has to really come back. And can just sit there and block and block and block and block and just cause havoc for other players. Conversely, it can happen to you, and you're just like, good God, please move your fucking person before I strangle you. It's great. I love those feelings in games. So yeah, Le Havre, my number 5. Jeff, your number 5.
My number 5 is Robinson Crusoe.
Nice.
I really like it because it is the rare cooperative worker placement game. You are all working together with a lot of conversation about how fucked you are and what you need to do to be as little fucked as possible.
Get as unfucked, yeah.
Yes. It's like worker placement, worker pullment, worker unfucked, worker fucked.
Yep.
We've chit-chatted and stuff before. All of the scenarios are very different because your workers are doing a variety of different things depending on what scenario you're doing, which, like, every game of Le Havre, your worker's doing the same thing.
Fucking Jeff, apparently.
Fucking me. But
Correct.
But in Crusoe, all of your workers have different priorities because all the scenarios are different.
Mm-hmm.
Also, shelter and such
Yes.
is required. And
100%.
yes. Yeah. It's a good game. Good game with bad rulebook that's better now.
Yes.
Still might not be the best.
He said better.
Doesn't fit in my
And
box.
I said might not, because I haven't
I know.
seen the newest
I'm just
rulebook.
saying,
Both of our statements were correct.
yes, very not good to not good is still better.
But now it doesn't fit in the box, which is not good. Because the new box is square and my old box is rectangular.
Oh, yes.
The new rulebook does not fit in the old box.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Womp womp.
Zach, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is Raiders of the North Sea. And it is, like was previously stated, about the worker pullment or the timing of placing your workers and pulling other workers, and how you have to do certain things. You have to have certain types of workers. There's certain different types of workers in this game. And so you have to make sure you pull the right worker so that you can then use that worker to do what you need to on the next turn. But in order to do that, you have to make sure you have whatever's required to pull that guy off. And so it may take longer time of you trying to fuss with things around here to get that one worker you need with all the resources you need to do what you want. And I think the timing and strategy that takes, but also if I need to place something there, but Jeff decides to place his guy there, it's like, oh fuck, that's the only way to get that. And so the blocking is a big aspect, but also you can block in two ways, by putting a guy there or pulling a guy that I was going to pull. And so because the timing of you have to put first before you pull is paramount in this game. So I think that leads to a lot of interesting decisions.
I would agree.
I would also agree. Concur.
Moving on to the fours, top fours, getting right up there. My number 4 is going back, and I almost combined my 3 and 4.
Okay.
Like I did with Manhattan Project.
I mean, we're already at like top 38 or something on my list here. So
you know what? This isn't going to be the worst instance of that. So just go ahead and continue.
This is at least the second worst instance on this list already.
Yeah.
What?
You had 3 as a whole whole spot.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So it's only 2.
No. So this one isn't 2. So I almost combined my 3 and 4. I didn't.
I'm saying there's going to be a worse instance of this when you get you get later on one of my things.
Okay.
So he can't talk too much shit currently.
That's why I'm not saying anything.
It's only Jeff.
It's fallen to me.
Yes.
Anyway, I ultimately split them because it's different things I like about them, as I'll talk about in each of their entries. But number 4 is Keyflower. Keyflower, I really like how they turned a worker placement game into a bidding and auction game with workers, while still being a worker placement game. And I really like the added twist that workers that you place on tiles that belong to another opponent, at the end of the turn, those workers just become a part of that opponent's village now. They've moved over there. They're now working in that town. You're getting new villages that come, workers and villagers that come on the boats every season as pilgrims to this new land of Keyflower. And I really like the multi-use aspect of that you can use them for bidding, you can use them for actions. I also really like that they have the different colors and the way that leads into kind of a blocking and interesting decision space for which ones you're going to use for different things. It also has the thing that Saga's had for just you, but it has it for everybody. If I send one worker onto a space to do something, anybody else who wants to do that same thing now needs to send 2, and then the next person needs to send 3, but that's the most that can ever be sent. So if I send 3 initially, fucking no one can send anything. If I send 2 initially, one person can send 3. So you can, again, kind of like you were talking about, Zach, in Energy Empire, that becomes a big decision point for you, is how many do I send to go do this thing, whether or not I want to give other people the chance to follow. Yeah, I like everything it does with just a big bag of meeples.
Great.
So Keyflower, my number 4.
I may have wanted to put that one on my list, but I've only played it once, and it was a long time ago.
We should review it soon-ish, sometime, maybe.
Add it to the list.
Anyway, Jeff, you're number 4.
My number 4 is A Feast for Odin. This is the most worker placement game, I think, by far.
Oh, yeah.
It's got just
the most amount of spaces in a game for you to put a worker. Yes.
Yes. I really like it. The workers do a bunch of interesting things. Some of them are more, they're sort of the same thing, but on a horizontal plane of what you want.
Yes.
With a couple little varieties in there. In general, I really enjoy the game with all of its million pieces to make your crazy nightmare board thing happen. Please never touch the board.
Pow.
Yeah, no animals or infants allowed in the room being played with A Feast for Odin. Yeah, and the 2-player or the solo version is definitely a little more interesting because you're playing, there's a little more blocking in there because you don't have a full board after each one. I wish that was a little bit more in some of the higher player counts, but
it would be hard to...
It would be hard for that to happen unless there was some like weird neutral color or something like that. But overall, one of my more favorite UA worker placement games.
Right on. Zach, you're number 4.
My number 4 is Manhattan Project 2, Minutes Midnight, and then also sort of Zolkin. But that's because it's removing a worker activates them.
Okay.
Yeah. That also has a thing like that.
Have you played Zolkin?
Yes, I played it once a long time ago.
I have bought it a long time ago
Yeah.
and have not played it.
I want to play Zolkin so bad.
It was okay, but that doesn't mean much for me. But I like that in Manhattan Project 2, when you're pulling a worker off, it activates them, sort of like what I was saying when you were talking about it. You have you put them down, and so you have a wide variety of things that you're pulling off, and you get to choose the order you do it. So you don't have enough money to do something, you pull the guy off to get the money to be able to do it and stuff like. And I just like you're able to choose the order in which you activate them, and so it'll help you in the best way possible. Ideally, it'll help you in the best way possible. And I thought that was a welcome or a better, an improved version of the original Manhattan Project, where you put it down to activate it, and then the pulling is just okay, well, this is just a turn of resetting. I like that it's you're putting the guys out, and then you're instead of just a reset, it's here's the meat of your action is activating all of them at once.
Yeah.
So it's definitely the hardest thing for me to learn in Manhattan Project 2.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. I was surprised to hear Manhattan Project and Zolkin combined together, but I see now why
Yes.
you did. It makes sense once you explained it.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Top threes. My number 3, in case you didn't figure it out from Keyflower being my number 4, it's part of the Key series. It's Keeper. I assume that more of the Key series would be on my list if I'd played more of them. It seems like Richard Breese does a really good job of doing different things with worker placements in his games. So the thing I like about Keeper, things I like about Keeper as a worker placement and where I think they're really unique. So I like what they did with when you place a meeple out onto one of the 4 country boards, which are foldable, manipulatable boards that I'll touch on here again in a second. But when I place a worker out there, going around in turn order, everybody has a chance to follow me, but only one person can. So if Jeff follows me, then Zach, you're fucked. But if Jeff passes, then Zach, you get to. If you pass, then player number 4 gets to. And then they get to take the same action. So it's kind of beneficial for them to follow. But then later, once I'm out of meeples, I can go around and my meeples that are standing in a spot, I can lay them down to activate it again. So basically every meeple gets a chance to work twice, which is really interesting. And then ultimately at the end of each round, you claim different, everybody gets to claim one of the country boards along with all of the workers on it. So you kind of, when you're pairing up with somebody, you're like, hey, we're actually really making this board something somebody might want to grab because we're putting more and more workers on it. It continues in Keyflower of having different color of workers that represent different things and can do different things, which is really interesting and I really enjoy. And then the folding country boards I really like because this is one of the few worker placements that I can think of where, if not the only one, I actually really can't think of another one offhand. I'm sure there is one. But it's one of the only ones, the only one that I can think of where you can manipulate what actions are available in future rounds because you take back that folding country board and you get all the meeples on it, and then you get to flip it around and fold it to fit however you want when you set it back out there. So you can manipulate it to kind of show the actions that you want to be able to do.
Gotcha, okay.
Versus other actions. It is one of the single coolest components I have ever seen in a board game. And it adds another layer to the worker placement and Keeper that I think is just absolutely fan-fucking-tastic. So that's why Keeper is my number 3. Jeff, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is Raiders of the North Sea.
Oh,
Two Viking games.
That's the second game that's been on all 3 actual top 10s as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
The worker pullment, very vital. Zach said pretty much all of it. Really like Raiders of the North Sea. Worker placement, worker pullment, managing all of those resources. Also, as the resources thin out during the game, pushing you more and more north. And then there's just a lot of bad options left in certain spots. And then sometimes it's just trying to make the best out of some of those bad options. And great art.
Yes, that is true.
It's an enjoyable game to look at and play. I look forward to ever getting the expansions for it.
Whenever that would happen.
Yes. Soon as my computer has a video card.
So it sounds like it'll be a while.
I don't know.
A better video card than that's already in there.
Yes.
Anyway, Zach, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is Argent the Consortium, but also a little bit of Tiny Epic Western in that worker placement spaces are not safe. That you're like, oh, I'm going to do this thing here, and you're not activating them yet. That's during the resolution phase, and then Jeff could just be like, you know what, I like that spot too. Fuck you. And so for Argent, there are certain characters that can do it and stuff like that, and some are safe from doing that. But the fact that you're like, you have to be like, how important is this one here? Do I have a worker that is safe from doing whatever? But I like the idea of the interactivity of, as much as I do like blocking from worker placement, it was always a little bit like, well, I'm here and that's it. You know, because you've already done the action. So because you haven't done the action yet, someone else could just be like, no, fuck you. You're not get to do that. Sorry.
Yeah.
And so it really adds an interactivity in a, a Euro style game that I think is refreshing.
Right on. Argent is another one that was in that big list of honorable mentions for me. I think it did a lot of really cool things. I didn't love the theme and the art style and some of that stuff. Again, it's one we reviewed. Go listen to the review.
He just wasn't a fan of the art style, the theme, and then the gameplay. So,
yeah.
Is there anything left?
I liked the game. I liked aspects of the game.
The minis?
I just liked how you said that, and I was like, just
gonna keep going.
It's fine except for everything.
So my number 2, because we're now on to the 2s. My number 2 is me yet again sneaking more games into the top 10 than just 10 games. It is Colonists, with a shout out to Yokohama in the same breath here. And this is because they both do a really interesting thing where you are pathfinding, essentially, as you do your worker placement. I think Colonists does it more interesting in a lot of ways, and Colonists is the one I'm really going to talk about, but Yokohama also uses a similar mechanism that I do like in Yokohama. But I love the central colony board in Colonists, and that as you take actions, you're moving your piece around the village to the different locations. I love that they're different every time you play, and I love that as you play through the eras, it grows and grows and grows, which gives you more and more options, but at the same time, going in one direction to get one thing moves you further from things on the other side of the city. There's some ability to jump back to like central locations, the common town square areas, but depending on how those cities kind of get built out, and it's one of the players who gets to do that each era based on where they are in turn order and all of that, it lends to a really strategic kind of decision making about, if I go this way, how can I maximize going this way to do actions versus going this other way to do slightly different actions. And I absolutely love that. It's even better when you can just simulate a whole bunch of the early game that gets a little repetitive over multiple plays and just get into that late game that's more interesting and cut the entire gameplay from like 8 hours into like 4 hours. But yeah, Colonists.
I think that's my main problem with Colonists is the
there's a whole era of the game that sucks.
Yeah. But I don't want to simulate it. That's the thing, is that you're like, oh yeah, if you just simulate, 1 and 2, you get to do a 3, 4. I'm like, I don't want to do that. That seems too much. I don't know.
Too much hand waviness.
Yeah.
See,
but I could do so much better.
I know. No, I can understand why you want to.
No, so I was going to say the hand waviness, the simulating does two things for me. So one, I actually like the point buy. Like, it feels like almost, building a character in an RPG, like allocating different amounts of resources to get like your starting village in the later eras.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually like the simulating process they came up with. But if I did have one complaint about the game, and it's why I will almost always simulate at least the first era, It's that I think it's one of its major flaws. We'll probably never actually get a review Colonists. Unfortunately, I would love to, but I don't think it'll happen. So my one major flaw with Colonists is that I think the game is worse if you play every era. Like the way the game plays, you end up with a worse city in the first and second eras than if you simulate and just do the point buys.
And what do you mean by that? Is it because you get to make the best version of the city in when you do point buys?
Because of just the way that the central city where you take your actions is built out, necessary actions that chain together are going to just not ever be together. So it's hard to do things efficiently, which might be why you like it, because you like having to work around inefficiencies, whereas I love the optimization puzzles. Well, and the point buy gets to kind of...
You get to do... You're like, all right, I'm going to set the best version of the first two ages so then I can go for 3. Whereas, for me, it's like...
Well, my best version, which might be different from your best version.
Exactly.
And that's what I like to see, is who did better optimizing.
Yeah.
That.
Right.
Yeah.
So...
Interesting. Now I want to review Colonists so we can have a more in-depth discussion about this. But now's not quite the time for it.
No.
Jeff, what
I've
is
never
your number
played
2? And because we have other things we're trying to talk about.
Yep. My number 2 is Champions of Midgard.
Nice.
This is starting to reach the point of just like, these are my favorite worker placement games.
Yeah.
Fuck using them in interesting, weird, new, different ways.
That's okay.
Champions of Midgard is a fantastic game. It has it almost destroyed Lords of Waterdeep off the top 10 and be like, fuck, it's 2 games that are the same thing, but one's clearly better.
Yeah.
This, I would almost say, replaces it as an intro into worker placement games.
I would say unless you hate dice. Lords of Waterdeep is good for your do you want an intro to worker placement, but you fucking hate dice?
Just
then first...
Well, you stab someone with a key fob over dice.
Yeah. First, figure out what's wrong with you, but while you're doing that, go... You. But while you're doing that, then go play Lords of Waterdeep. Yeah.
Champions of Midgard, fantastic game, fantastic worker placement, fantastic theme, fantastic, I don't know, components after you get the fancy meat-shaped ones, because it's just cubes.
Yes.
Everything's great. It's all great. Love Champions of Midgard.
Good game.
Solid number 2 worker placement game.
Are you including expansions in there?
I am definitely including Valhalla.
Yes. I didn't say that when I did it. I just remember that, but we are. Yeah. I'm including Valhalla in that too. So
in my intro thing, it includes Valhalla.
Okay. All right. I feel like it's some people still I haven't even played it without Valhalla, but
I would never.
I know you would never, and I feel like it would be missing something. So I feel like we can't really talk about it as a base game just because we know we played what I felt like what a lot of people felt fixed it, and so it's going to the whatever.
It fixed it so well.
Yes, exactly.
So you could never go back.
Yes.
You could never go back to Midgard.
Oh, Zach, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is this is that sort of bullshit thing that I was talking about. Manhattan Project and Manhattan Project 2, Trinity Empire, and Everdell, and that pulling workers is an action. So one of my favorite things about worker placements is the blocking, but at the end of a round, everybody pulls it out. At the end of a round, everybody pulls their workers back, and then it's a fresh board again. But with these games, when you pull it off, when you pull your workers back, it's an action, and so it'll be different for each people. So if you can, your workers are just going to stay there until you pull them back. So you're blocking valuable spots, sort of like what you were saying with Le Havre.
Yeah.
You can be like, if you get a good engine and you can do a lot of stuff before pulling, and you have workers on very important spots, people are going to get fucking pissed at you.
So mad.
And you're just like, I'm just going to play another card. Oh, you really want those 3 twigs? Sorry, I got these cards to play over here, so you can just go fuck off.
Yep.
Eat a bunch of dicks.
So I do really like that you can just be like, I don't want to pull them off yet.
Yeah.
And, as long as I got other stuff I can do, so I don't have to. And you're like, oh, God damn it. I really need that one spot.
Yep. Everdell is pretty interesting with pulling your workers is not just something you can keep doing. You can do it like 3 times.
Well, yeah, because it signifies when it goes to summer,
winter to spring,
yes,
etc.
Yes, and so at the end of the game, when you're done, your workers just stay there. So one sort of nice thing about like when you have a really long, complicated engine, you take a while to do all your shit. But if you had like even the game that I lost by however many points. I think like 20 something points.
A lot of points.
Yeah, but I still got better than my winning score last time. That's just always weird. Is that I was able to lock down like good spots early while some people were still in the middle of their like near the end of their summer, and I was like, I've reached winter now, so those spots are just there forever. My pieces are there. You can never use them. Yeah. Sorry. So I like that. I really did like the.
Interesting.
Yes.
Worker placement and recall is a very limited thing in the game.
Yes. Yeah, that's my number 2.
Right on.
Number 2s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're now on to the pinnacle, the peak, the tippy top, the number 1s.
Number unos.
Yeah. My number 1, for those of you paying attention at home, should be no surprise at this point. It's Gallerist. Yeah. Aside from the fact that I said it was on my list.
It'd have been great if you're still like, it's still Agricola.
Psych!
If you hadn't said a Beetle game, if you had said one before that, I'd be like, I swear to fucking God, Adrian, if you pull that shit.
I almost wish I had done that now just for the reaction, but no. I tried to really stick to interesting mechanics. And the Gallerist is another one that, again, has almost 2 different aspects of worker placement. You have your main pawn taking actions on one of the 4 fucking spaces, which I love just how limiting that is, but how much you can still do with just 4 spaces. I love the leaving somebody behind when you move, which then doubles your opportunities for getting kicked out, which I love the kick-out mechanism. If somebody wants to go where you are, they can, but you have a chance to get to do a whole nother action there again. I think that's really clever. And then I like with the assistance that you have a limited pool where if you get too many, you can have them out there in a bunch of places, but if some come back and there's not room for them, they're just gone. Like, too bad, you fucked up. But they have other places that they can go and just kind of permanently sit there till the end of the game. And so you're constantly trying to manage that flow of your assistants in and out as you're placing them in different places. You almost always want to have at least one available so you can leave it when you move your pawn so that you have 2 spaces you can take a kick out.
Right.
And just that managing that action economy in this worker placement is just so fucking good. And as I've talked about with a lot of these, and it's almost a little surprising to me, but it's really not, because I do appreciate when theme connects to mechanics. I care more about the mechanisms, the mechanics of the game. I do really appreciate it when theme connects, and God, the theme connects in Gallerist really, really well, which just makes that worker placement stuff in it even better. So yeah, Gallerist is not even close. Like, when we sat down to do this thing, Gallerist immediately went to number 1.
Gallerist number 1. Now let's figure out what other things.
It was like, all right, what's the rest of this list going to look like? It was a no-brainer.
Right. I think my main problem. So I forget where I heard this, but for a lot of people, so say you had a card that, 2 versions of a card that more or less are the same. Is that one is you get an energy or a point or whatever. The other one is everybody except you loses a point. Effectively, it's the same.
The net change.
The net change is the same.
You are now one higher than everyone.
A lot of people will go for the. I would rather just gain a point. I am very heavily in the everybody else lose a point, and so the kick out actions. It's like, oh, I leave a guy here, you go here, but I get something else. For me, it's just like I would rather just be like, no, you just can't go there. Go fuck off. Go find something else to do. And so I think that's always been my problem with a lot of his games. Is his main style of choosing is, yeah, everybody gets to do something. I get to do something extra, but I'm like, I would rather deny than get something in excess.
So I feel like there could be an entire discussion about this. That would be an awesome discussion. We don't really have a whole lot of time for it, but I see what you're saying. And I think that the card choice there that you were talking about gives an interesting glimpse into our fundamental difference, because I am definitely in the I would want to get one while everybody else got nothing, rather than me get nothing and everybody else lose one.
Right.
However, when it comes to worker placements, I typically do look more for the actual hard blocking.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I like about Gallerist is I feel like the kick out action for me functions almost more for a blocking. It makes sometimes choosing an action more punishing because it's like, shit, Zach has his pawn there. I really want to take that action, but I really don't want to help Zach.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that.
Well, and it's funny too is that even that 2-card thing, you had a different view on that than even I did, which was me gaining something, and the other ones was people losing things out. You were like, I get something and nobody else gets anything. Like it wasn't even about that.
Oh,
That's what I found funny, that you're just like, no, yeah, because I think about it this way, and you're like, but it's even more, yeah. So,
yeah. Interesting discussions could be had there. We'll have to try and keep that in mind. Or rather, listeners, later when we ask for good discussions, be like, hey, you mentioned this one time. This would be a good discussion.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, Gallerist, my number one. Jeff, what is your number one?
Can you guess? Do you know?
It's Caverna.
Of course it is.
Agricola?
No. That's like number 14.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I'm sorry. Number 18, because Caverna is number 16.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, fuck off.
Definitely the most pure of worker placements on here. You just sort of build up resources and put dudes down and make a farm / cavern and put the best buildings you can in it, and you add up scores at the end. It's a pretty bare worker placement game. Talked about Agricola earlier. It's better than Agricola.
Shut up.
It's Agricola Plus?
It's Agricola Plus. I'm looking forward to getting that race expansion that's going to be coming out.
Right.
And getting some more plays of Caverna in hopefully soon. Of course, that expansion's never going to fit in that box.
Never.
Agricola is a great game. Caverna is a great game. And I just really like Caverna and all of its bits. It's been overshadowed by A Feast for Odin, of course, and the amount of shit that you can put in a box.
Oh my God.
But this was definitely the number one for a while. Great game. We talked so much about Agricola that pretty much everything about that applies to this one.
Right.
But this one is just also a really, really good game.
Yep. I mentioned it in my honorable mentions. I think from the aspect of worker placement, Agricola, Caverna, they're the same. I would like Caverna a lot more if Agricola didn't exist, but unfortunately Agricola does. I do think Caverna is actually a really good game, especially as a, like Jeff said, pure worker placement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The most pure.
Yeah.
Also expensive still.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like 70 plus dollars at all times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All that wood. I mean, you got to like fell a tree. Like it's an entire tree's worth of wood in that game.
So many boards in that game for the variety of different player counts.
Yeah.
Right.
Zach, wrap us up. What is your number one?
Gotcha.
High note. Don't let us down here. Don't let it be some bullshit. Don't pull a Founders of Gloomhaven here.
Oh, 100% wouldn't do that. It's like I'm trying to think. It's like, could I convince him somehow that Agricola was my number one? No, exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't have bought
I
it.
know.
I'm sorry.
But my number one is Yokohama / The Colonists for worker movement.
Yep.
Because the actions you can choose are physically limiting because you can only move a certain amount. And so I do like they take different different styles of it. Yokohama, the entire board's built up at the beginning, but
yes.
Certain if someone else is at a spot, you can't be there. You can go through there. You have to pay them money, but so it has the blocking aspect, but it's also because you have to spend assistance to travel.
You basically make a path.
Yeah, you make a path. So you're basically making spots more. I don't know. What's the
expensive.
word? Not inexpensive, but more desirable for other people by crossing, because when you go to the assistant, you get no. I'm thinking of something else. Sorry.
Yeah, no. You leaving a trail of assistance blocks off more of the board, and people are gonna have to pay you to go. No, because they don't pay for assistance.
No. It's you
only pay when you go where they're.
But you use the assistants that are there. when you go to your guy there. That's what it was.
Yes.
That's what I got confused on.
Yeah. It's been too long. It's actually been too long since we played Yokohama.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite, but I'd like to get to the table.
Yeah, I
have a big enough table for it now.
Yes, you do.
I like to call these top 10 lists all the games that we wish we would play.
Right? Yeah, you're not wrong. But yeah, the fact that you get to, try, you're like, all right, I'm going to go here because I want to come back here later. But, it's like you're making traces, but you also, if you don't have enough assistance to leave spots, you can't go there. So it's this nice, ebb and flow. And the colonists, it's about the city is expanding. And so I like that you're getting to choose. But I like that you're like, well, we put this here, and the thing that really works well for it is fucking over here. And you're like, oh, God damn it. And so trying to work around that. And then also, I think Colonists was less for me. One of the reasons was that you can go where other people are. You just have to pay them for it.
But you have to pay them a lot.
I know you have to pay them a lot, but once again, that's the...
Fair enough.
I would rather than be like, no, you can't go here versus you can come here, but you got to pay me sort of shit. So
fair enough.
But I really like the first time I played Yokohama and even the Colonists, like I really liked that aspect of the puzzle of it's not just who can get there first, but it's can I actually even get there?
Yes.
And how do I get to there? And then also here. And then you have to go to spots. You have to be able to do wherever you're going. So you have to plan for that. And so I like the very limiting factor that gives you.
Yes.
So that is my number one.
Right on.
So I've crafted a top 6-ish
Okay.
of our top 10s.
Based off what we all kind of did and
Mhm.
and ranked. Okay.
So 3 games were on all 3 lists.
Okay.
And then I ranked them by average of where they happened upon our list. So our number 1 is Robinson Crusoe.
Okay.
I'd buy it.
Our number 2 is Raiders of the North Sea.
Okay.
Our number 3, it's some asterisk on there because of your 2 people's bullshit.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Manhattan Project Energy Empire.
Yeah,
I only
okay.
counted that one because that was the only one that was on my list as a solo.
Right.
And then due to its high placement, but only on 2 lists, Yokohama
Mhm.
and the Colonists, and then Champions of Midgard and Everdell.
I'd buy it.
Yeah.
Everdell is one. I've only played it the one time, and it was just last Wednesday. Yeah, shit. That was the other game we played on Wednesday.
Yeah.
We should have talked about that on Wednesday's episode.
Well, we'll talk about it next week.
And then Gallerist is sort of right in there. Their averages were very close. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Everdell would probably be on mine. I think it does a lot of really interesting things. I'm looking forward to playing it some more and really diving into it. That's a solid top 6.
Yeah.
Those are 6 good games.
Mm-hmm.
I would just love to see some people's faces. Mile High Game Guys, favorite worker placement? Robinson Crusoe.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a good worker placement, though. It really is. Yeah. So that's our list. Let's jump into some listener feedback for some more lists. Nobody emailed us anything, but we didn't really ask anybody to. However, there was a BGG thread, and man, was it bumping.
I would have been mad if once again nobody commented on
Right?
this.
But luckily, people did. There's a bunch. So, Zach, how about you dive into this BGG thread?
Yeah. So the first one is from Anthony. Snowdonia. Yep. Definitely Snowdonia because the weather and the events. Snowdonia for the win. FYI, this is Tony Boydell, the guy who made Snowdonia.
Yes. So, and this is where I, again, continue to feel like a dick. I still haven't played Snowdonia.
Do you own Snowdonia?
I don't. I don't
Okay.
even own it.
Neither do
However,
I.
Paul backed the most recent super deluxe fucking everything Kickstarter.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And so I can't wait for that to actually get here.
Okay.
I've played his 2-player, like, Snowdonia-esque game that he's currently
right.
developing.
Yes.
And that was really good. If that's any indication, I'm going to fucking love Snowdonia. I just haven't been able to get my hands on it.
Gotcha.
So,
Wally says, Argent the Consortium has almost replaced our other worker placement games for us recently. You got that spot first? Well, screw you. You're in the infirmary now. Or banished. Or I can shadow you, or I want to watch the world burn that I can just completely destroy that room outright.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
yeah.
And even though it seems like the game is a series of big fuck yous left and right, it's actually balanced and really mechanically precise with repercussions for every action. You can't just blast everyone off the map because someone will push bell tower cards and leave you with unused workers in your office. With as much variability the game offers, it's been impressive seeing how close every game has been. Argent's hidden information voter system, direct in-your-face player interaction, insane variability, and mostly deterministic gameplay has made this a huge favorite in our group. And the game doesn't need it, but the expansions really add a lot as well. Festival of the Masks fixed the lack of interest in grabbing the first player bell tower, for instance. Definitely my favorite worker placement. Definitely my favorite Oh my god. Ugh. Definitely my favorite worker placement with the Gallerist, a sort of distant second.
Yeah, that actually makes me want to play Argent again. That was such a great description of Argent, motherfucker.
We never played it with the expansions.
No,
and we
weren't able to get the expansion.
We never played it with the second edition stuff. It was like a first edition that we got. Yeah.
We could definitely look into playing it again when that actually comes out.
The top 10 list continues of, I wish I played that game more.
Right. It does, to me, seem a little too fuck you for my personal taste.
Which is understandable, because it is like, fuck you.
It's a little
Argent,
too much direct.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
But at least Gallerist was his sort of distant second.
Yeah.
So
it's like number 11.
fuck off.
Bryant says, worker placement is definitely my favorite mechanism, especially when there's a tightness to the board. There's a tightness to the board with some places that are always fought over. Also, I tend to like it when the first player position is important, and there is a place that allows that to switch. It helps when the game scales well, usually blocking off spots at lower player counts that keep things tight. Recently, I've been drawn to more dice worker placement games. My top 3, Zolkin the Mayan Calendar, The Voyages of Marco Polo, and Russian Railroads. Also, one that has my interest that is soon coming to Kickstarter is the Artemis Project.
I have not played any of those 3.
I've heard things about Russian Railroads.
I have heard things as well. Didn't David play that at game night one time and really liked it? Or was that a different?
That was a different thing.
Okay.
But I mean, I would want to try out Russian Railroads because it's not a train game. It's
game. It's got all the things you need to play the game in the box.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
All right. Yeah.
Sharpened pencils and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
yes.
sure.
Sharpened pencils, so important.
Yeah. Well, it's a rolling right. Fucking let me write. All right. Andrew says, the Gallerist must be mentioned. The kick-out action is fun. Who doesn't love being rewarded for being a dick and standing in the way? And also, it's a brilliant game. Dominant Species is a winner if you have too many friends and want to lose a few.
I've played that once.
Uh-huh.
I've owned it for a long time. I don't know if I need to play it more.
Yeah, I had owned it, and it even made my list of these are worker placements that I've played.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. It was on mine too.
Yeah. But I was like, the things I liked were other things. So
Dominant Species was another one that got left off of my honorable mentions because I like that it's another example of like the delayed gratification kind of like you're placing them out there and like this one you really want to get it, but now it's gonna be one of the last things to actually resolve. Yeah, but ultimately it I don't know. There were other more interesting.
Too much for me.
It has, especially the last couple times I've played it, it is unfortunately not aging well for me personally.
Right, yes. Russian Railroads is the Oprah of worker placement. You get a point. You get a point. Everybody gets a point. Everybody gets points. So that's a good one for friends that need to feel like they're smart.
Oh my God.
Brutal.
That's great. I
like how Andrew said that right after Bryant listed Russian Railroads as one of his top 3.
Yeah.
Fight.
If they get too high and mighty, Agricola can bring them an appropriate amount of self-loathing. I sent you for wood, and you brought back one fucking stick. We need a fence to get this we need a fence to get this fucking cow to the house. No wonder we're starving.
To be fair, if you're putting cows in your house this late and no fences, it's not looking good for you.
Yeah,
that is rough.
I mean, Agricola is affectionately known as Misery Farm for a reason.
100%. That's why you like it.
Yes.
Also great, Zolkin, Feast for Odin, Snowdonia, and Viviculture. Hey, somebody else mentioned Snowdonia, so it might actually be a good game.
Yes. Oh my God.
No, I'm just saying. If only a designer says it.
Right. No. It's
no, but I've heard it.
The more people say it, the more I want to play it.
Yep. Worker placement is the best.
I like, just as a very quick aside, on Wednesday you mentioned you'd been rewatching BoJack Horseman,
Mhm.
and I said it was too depressing for me. And yet I love Misery Farm, like one of the most depressing.
It's you like being depressed. You don't like watching other people be depressed.
Fair point. Fair point.
All right, Paolo says honorable mention. He has a list, so that's just
It's his top 12,
yes.
essentially.
honorable mentions. 12, The Three Kingdoms Redux. That's the game you have.
Yes, which we actually need to add to the review because it's a 3-player only game, and people have said that they would
Okay.
love to hear how the three of us felt playing it.
All right,
Because it's asymmetrical. Fuck you.
gotcha.
Yeah.
11, The Gallerist. Hey, you were right. Number 11.
God damn it. Fuck off.
Yeah.
All right, you hear that, Paulo? Adrian just said "fuck off." That's cruel to a listener.
Why are you out of your corner, Paulo?
This is the wrong. You should have posted on YouTube.
Oh.
All right, top 10. Brew Crafters. Is that the one that we played? That was
We always
Agricola, but beer.
Okay.
We never remember what
Well, there's two
that
of them.
beer game is.
There's 2 brew games.
Yeah.
And
Brew Crafters is the good one.
what was the other one? Brew in USA.
Brew in USA, which is fucking terrible.
Gotcha. Number 9, Le Havre. Number 8, Tricarion?
Tricarion.
Tricarion. Legends of Illusion.
I've wanted to play Tricarion for a while. It's from the same designers who did Anachrony, and it's
They can't just choose simple names, can
supposed to be really good. Plus, it's an interesting theme. I mean, you're magicians stealing like magic tricks and shit from each other, which I think sounds pretty cool.
they? So you're saying it just copied trick-taking the trick-taking game. That's what I'm hearing.
God damn it.
Number 7, Vinyos Deluxe Edition, the 2010 version.
That was also in that massive list of honorable mentions that I just didn't get to. It's really good.
Is that the one that you have 2010?
So Vinyos Deluxe has both 2010 and 2016 versions in it.
Oh, that's what it is.
So
Okay.
you're saying the 2010 version's
Okay.
the better version, which is correct.
Okay. Number 6, Agricola. Number 5, Vanuatu,
Also in my honorable mentions.
2nd edition.
Yeah.
Number 4, Dungeon Lords. That's the Vital.
Yes.
V-
Or not Vital.
No.
Vlada.
Vlada. That's what I meant to say. Vlada. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
The other V designer.
Number 3, Madeira. Number 2, Snowdonia. And number 1, Kanban. Driver's Edition.
I think Kanban was just always driver's edition.
Oh, okay.
I don't think there's different versions. Maybe I'm wrong. That's a great fucking list. The only ones I haven't played on that are Tricarion, Dungeon Lords, and Snowdonia. All 3 of which I've heard great things about. Everything else on there is really good.
I've only played 3 games on that list.
Jeez, Jeff. Play more worker placements.
Play more weird shit that I haven't ever even seen.
I've-
Know people that own it.
Yeah. Out of the top 10, I've only played 4. So all of these are just amazing, amazing games, and that's enough said.
Not wrong.
Next is Nick. Nick says, Tales of the Northlands.
Which is what Sagas of Noggin the Nog's official name is.
There you go. Because it's bad to run out of Nogs, isn't it, Adrian?
Did you do
and,
that?
I did do that
Okay.
in more than one game.
And I am a selfless. Yeah. No.
Just add whatever words you want.
I know, right? No, I am a shameless self-publicist in very good company because he is the guy that also made Tales of the Northlands.
Yes. And he's in very good company since Tony was just
Exactly.
above him
Yeah.
making his stuff. Yes.
100%.
Man, I really need to put together that interview from Nick and Tony, as shitty as it will be, because it was a drunken, like, 2 a.m. Portugal thing. I need to get that together and get that out there, because it is just great.
Yes.
Those
Yeah.
2 are awesome.
Especially because then they will stop being like, Adrian, you need to do this.
Also, yes. But I'm running like 8 months behind on every major project I'm working on, so it's about due. You know,
Gotcha. Yeah.
I recorded it in March. It'll come out, in like November. 8 months late.
You're
Will
not wrong.
Tales be out by then?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Eric says, I still really like Viviculture plus Tuscany. The main thing I don't like about many worker placements is that you have to spend much of the game gaining new workers, especially when you have no chance at keeping up without them.
That's actually one of the things I like about a lot of worker placements. I do like ones that turn it on its head a little bit, as I've discussed in my top 10, but that is one of the things I actually typically do like. if I had a complaint about most worker placements,
It was
and it
okay. Yeah, continue.
and it happens with most, it's less worker placement and more, a lot of worker placements also use engine building. And engine building games, you build a great engine, and it's like, who built the best engine? Okay, you did, but we're not actually going to ever run that engine. We trust it looks like the best engine. We're not going to find out if it's the
Right.
best.
Euphoria was one I was thinking of where you didn't necessarily have to have more workers.
Yeah, it does a good job of that.
Yeah, but if someone has more workers and they get lucky with their rolls, then they're going to do better.
They're going to be in a strong position, yes.
Finally, Kent says, there are many, but some that come to me, some that come to mind are the following. The Manhattan Project. Place workers one by one, and they continue to block spaces from use by others until you spend one turn to retrieve them all.
Yep.
Which I said,
We
big
talked
fan of
about
that. Yep.
Manhattan Project a lot, yeah.
Vanuatu. Workers that also act as currency to win the action. Brutal and leaner than Keyflower.
I would agree. I'm so desperate to get more plays of Vanuatu. I think it would have easily moved into that key flower spot if I had played it more. But I've only played a half a game.
Gotcha. Keyflower. Workers as currency to win bids on tiles and /or activate tiles.
Yep.
Kanban Drivers Edition. One worker to rule them all with rippling side effects on each action taken.
Plus mean and nice Sandra, depending on which you prefer.
Gotcha.
I've heard some people say that nice Sandra is actually like more punishing for being bad.
Is it more like passive aggressive?
The words you're saying are really passive, but they sound really aggressive. There should be a term for that.
The Gallerist, another worker to rule them all that gives bonuses for kicking someone out of a space. And then finally, Snowdonia, classic worker placement, intersect with events and weather. I keep seeing Snowdonia mentioned on here.
It has been mentioned several times. Tony, how much are you paying?
Yeah, he has been bribing a lot of people.
That's why we got so many comments.
Why
he
can't
went to a Chinese
we
troll
get the
farm.
money. You give us the money,
Troll
we can
farm,
talk
huh?
about it.
Just give us a copy of Snowdonia.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about it.
Yeah, Tony, send me some. Tony, weren't you going to put me in as a promo in Snowdonia? I'll release the interview when I get my Snowdonia promo card.
Jeez.
He took my picture at the AreaCon for me to be a Snowdonia promo card.
Maybe he was waiting on the interview to come out before he did it.
I don't know. But either way, blackmail, the MHGG way.
We'll get it on our business cards next round.
Yeah.
We respond to blackmail
Yes.
and bribery.
Yes.
Blackmail and bribes.
Yeah.
MHGG responds to BB.
Missing many, many more, but out of time. Although I feel like you had... Okay, he did send that today. So, yeah.
Yes. Right. Later this evening.
But also, he should know how long it takes for us to record these. You had hours of time.
Yeah, yes. Right on. That wraps up all of our listener feedback for this episode. Hopefully you all have enjoyed it. Hopefully, hearing our different takes on different worker placement games and what they do well and what they don't do well was illuminating. And thanks for everybody who left feedback. Apparently go play Snowdonia if you haven't already. Because it was widely the most mentioned game in that list.
That's the number one of MHGG listeners.
Yes. So, if you want to get a hold of us, you can always email us.
Emails at milehighgameguys.com.
You can always jump over to the Board Game Geek Guild number 2731, where this thread is still going to be up, as are all of our older threads from older episodes, where you can leave additional feedback. Did you think our lists were bullshit for some reason? Tell us. Did you think they were great? Tell us. Did you think one of us was great and the other two were bullshit? Tell Zach that he did good, or Jeff that he did good. I assume that regardless, I'm going to hear that I was bullshit. Since Paul's not here, I'd take over default bullshit in the studio.
Makes
we need
sense.
Paul in more often.
I will say, one person on our Slack channel was like, "Oh, he actually does have dulcet tones."
I liked the spiral in the Slack channel of boycott Paul and all of that shit. So yeah, that's another way to get a hold of us. Join our Slack channel. There's a link in the show notes on our website. Denver. That's a different website for board games.
Mm-hmm.
In the show notes over on our website, milehighgameguys.com. We have Facebook and Instagram /milehighgameguys.com. And we are all reasonably active in various ways over on Twitter, where I tweet under @MHGameGuys.
I am Zach_MHGG.
I am Jeff_MHGG.
I think that wraps everything up. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this episode. And we look forward to hearing from you. We'll catch you next Wednesday with another banter episode. Until then, I've been your host, Adrian.
I am still Zach.
And I'm Laborious Jeff.
Bye.
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 Punchboard Media, where we all
bring something
to the table.
Pull up a chair
at punchboardmedia.com.